Hello everyone, I'm Omari Graham, part of the Education and Outreach team at the UE Seismic Research Center, and welcome to a new series, a new video series that we're calling SRC Chats Quarantine Edition. So as you know, earthquakes and volcanoes don't really pay too much mind to stay-at-home orders. So even during this COVID-19 pandemic, we still have to make sure we're taking care of everybody when it comes to earthquakes, volcanoes, and the like. So during this series, what we're gonna try to do is just check in with a few of our staff members, find out how they are doing, find out what it takes for them to work at home, and just get a better insight as to how work has changed during this, really unprecedented time. So our first guest in the series is Mr. Rod Stewart. He's a volcano seismologist and he is based at the Montserrat Volcano Observatory. Hi, Rod.
Hi, Omari.
All right, nice. So what Rod does, Rod basically analyzes earthquake data associated with the Soufriere Hills Volcano in Montserrat. And at times he does work on some other events that may pop up in the region. And he looks at that data to really allow us to understand or help us understand what is going on with the volcano he works on, Soufriere Hills. So he analyzes that data, tells us if activity is ramping up or it's not doing anything special. All right, so Rod, welcome to SRC Chats.
Thank you very much.
To get started, how have you been coping with this whole 2019 scenario?
Personally, it's been okay. It's caused stress at times. But really, yeah, it's not the only bad times I think for me personally have been not being able to shop and running out of nice things to eat.
Okay.
But, we're getting on with that. Work has been a real challenge, but I think we're managing all right.
Okay. So you talk about work being a real challenge. What does it take for you to work from home?
Well, the main thing as a seismologist is having all the data. We have lots of data from our seismic stations, the seismometers, and being able to look at that. So at MVO, at the observatory, we have lots of computers that are processing this data, and we have a computer network that we're connected to, and we can see all this data. And the big challenge is being to see the data from home. Now, we've always been able to do some work from a distance because the volcano doesn't respect office hours. We've always been able to connect and see things. But in order to have this sort of lockdown and enforced working from home, the challenge was like arranging things so that we could do everything from home as opposed to a few things.
Everything. I think what? Just give us an example.
Just basically looking at the data, drawing it on my screen, plotting it, looking at the data from yesterday, looking at the data from last week, bits and pieces. The files of the data can be quite big at times, much bigger than just video and photographs. Sometimes we're talking gigabytes of data. So just getting connected to the computers at MVO has really been the big challenge. I'm lucky in that the laptop that I've got here is the same laptop I use at MVO, so it's already configured to do things. And the big thing that helps us is something called a VPN, a virtual private network. When that's running, my computer thinks it is actually at MVO and connected to all the MVO networks. And I can actually see all the computers. I can even see the printers if I wanted to print something out. I can do things that I could normally do in a day up there. However, there is a caveat, and that is it relies on good internet connection. And well, we learned this today trying to set up this
Yeah.
Montserrat, we have quite good connection, but more people, I think, especially with the lockdown, more people are using the internet, there's more demands on bandwidth, and therefore there's sometimes when I can't get good connections to MVO. So I'm just trying to schedule the sort of work I do, try and learn the times of day when the internet connection's better than it is. It's always worse in the morning, as we found out today. But really just being able to see the data and see what's going on is the key thing. And at MVO, we've got lots of displays and lots of computers and lots of people doing this. Here, you're sort of on your own. You haven't got all the displays, but you can, I don't know. You can do it as well as you could at MBO. I'm fairly happy. As long as we've got a good internet connection, I can do my job looking at data.
And good things to eat. So you spoke about being on your own. What about talking to colleagues? How does that work now that you're home?
That's a big thing that's missing, because work is a collegiate place. We work together, we discuss things, we try and solve problems together. And now we're all very separated. Now, we've all used social media in the past, but we've really sort of jumped into using social media during this. So we have a WhatsApp group for all the staff, not just the scientific staff, where we just share things about which shops are open, or what the government has announced 5 minutes ago, just to keep general contact. And then we have various other sort of groups and chats using WhatsApp, using Zoom, using IM, using all the different things just to communicate between us. So that's fairly good. One thing I've actually noticed is that we're a lot friendlier than we used to be. So I think when we used these sort of internet messages, social media, they were quite short messages, just yes, no, do this. But now I try and say to people, are you all right? Do you need anything? And I think everyone else is like that as well. We're using the internet to just look out for each other a little bit, because if you're on your own or you're just with your family, you might need help. So you need to keep asking people if they need help. So yeah,
cool.
We're in contact with people, but not physical contact. We're in discussion. But the big problem is things that need physical work. We have some stations that maybe we need to repair. You have to physically go there to fix them. A problem I've had in the last couple of days is one of the air conditioners at work has failed. That's one thing I can't do remotely, switch it back on again. I can't even detect from here if it's on or off. So I have actually occasionally had to go into MVO just to check on the air conditioning. But really, the modern tools that we've got, as long as we've got power and internet, we can do the job pretty well.
Sure, I can see that. So, and we hope you all continue being nice on the chat after this is all over.
Yes.
So you've been a seismologist, a volcano seismologist for a long time. This is an extraordinary time that the planet is living through. Have there been like crazy times throughout your career that kind of, comes to mind when you think about what we're going through now?
No, nothing's like what we're going through now. What we're going through now is just, I don't know, amazing. Not amazing, the opposite of amazing, shocking. Just the consequences and why we're doing this, and it's worldwide. My experience with volcanoes and earthquakes have always been local things. They affect you local, it's a disaster, but this is a potential world disaster. But I recall one episode, which is actually the opposite of what we're doing now. I'm working from home, trying not to go to work. I don't know how long ago it was, 30 years ago, I was working in Papua New Guinea and at the Volcano Observatory, and the volcano erupted there and it basically destroyed my home. I couldn't get to my home. So I ended up living at work for about 3 or 4 weeks. I was actually sleeping on the floor of my office, waking up, checking the equipment, doing bits and pieces, and then going to a house that was next to the observatory to have breakfast with some friends of mine. So I spent a good few weeks living in the office, which is, the exact opposite of what we're doing just now.
I think I might have been tempted to sleep in someone else's office, so I get to trick myself into thinking that I'm going to the next room to get to work, kind of thing.
That's true, but sometimes you don't think of these things. I mean, I'm not trying to say that you're doing great things, but the job's the most important thing. So I just didn't think. It was just, I can sleep here, that's fine. There's enough room on my office floor for a mattress, a pillow, and some sheets sort of thing. I didn't think of anywhere to make it comfier, because to me, the key thing was getting the job done.
Getting the job done. Nice,
yes.
Glad to hear. So
getting the job done and not going crazy at the same time.
And how big was this office?
The floor of it was big enough for a single mattress. It was not a very big office. So I had to sort of fold up all the bedding so I could work properly. But Other people were in much worse situations. That was a situation where a town of 20,000 people had to be evacuated. They were all living in tents, very bad sanitary conditions, very bad other things. So I was lucky to have a roof over my head and to have water and electricity.
So you said it was 20 years ago. Were there any casualties or anything like that, or you were the only casualty having to sleep?
No. That was an eruption. I think there were 7 casualties in total. Most of them were actually casualties during the evacuation. There were car accidents or people were struck by lightning. But I don't think there were any direct casualties from the sort of volcanic hazards themselves, because we had a reasonable amount of warning. But it was a stress casualty. I mean, that was a very, very stressful period. And after living in my office for those 2 or 3 weeks, my boss basically told me to have a holiday. He said that I'd become very, very irritable and difficult to work with. And so I was just sent a few, 10 kilometers away to stay with some people that I knew and just not do work for a few days.
Well,
and then come back fresh and start work again. Because working continuously round the clock like that can really get to you.
Yeah, well, you had an understanding boss. So if you could go back in time, what would you tell yourself in December 2019 to prepare for what you're having to do now?
Oh, that's a really good question. It would have just been get the computers set up better. There are things that I have sort of discovered. I mean, they're very esoteric computer things, but I've discovered how to do things that I wish I had known 6 months ago, because I could have practiced it and got it better, sort of thing. So it's really that. I mean, we have a big problem with our stations. We can't get to them because we don't have a helicopter here because the helicopters aren't using, and half of our network is only accessible by helicopter. We've no laborers to go and help clear the sites and do things, but we couldn't prepare for that in any way. No, I'm really not sure if there's anything I would do differently. I think we had this time period when we had to try and make these arrangements, sort things out. And now we're in a place where things seem to be working fairly. I was going to show you some data. I can still show you my screens.
Cool, that'll be good to see.
Is that not coming through?
It is.
Yeah. So that's sort of showing some of the seismic data from one of our stations at the MVO. These are just, we call them wiggles, but that's basically showing the ground movement. There's not much going on, but I look at another station here.
And what's the state of the volcano now in general?
It's very quiet. It's been quiet for 10 years now, but it's still sort of bubbling under. There's still earthquake activity. These signals here are small earthquakes. It's still got ground uplift. It's still pushing out gas. So it's still doing bits and pieces. So I can see these signals from the seismometers. I can also, if I'm lucky, look at this. I can actually see
the webcams.
Well, I've got 2 different kinds of cameras. So that's a camera from MVO showing the volcano as covered in cloud as always. And if I look at this webcam, not that one, this one. Yes, that's a thermal camera. So that camera actually shows you heat. And that's really just showing the heat from the vegetation that's been heated up by the sun today. But if the top of the volcano was clear, then we might be able to see some thermal activity on that. So I've got connection to all these cameras, connection to the seismic data. But I'm also very lucky. The volcano is actually just up there, so I can see it from home. So if I see any signals on the seismometer, I can just rush outside to my balcony and see if the volcano is doing anything.
Awesome, awesome. So that's really cool. So I'll leave you to work on your tan, right? And thank you so much for agreeing to be your first guest. You were saying?
I was going to say the only drawback of working from home is it's not a tan. I'm getting sunburned. I've got very pale Scottish skin, And I
Well, you could probably try going inside.
No, but I'm sitting on the veranda here, and it's in the shade. But sitting here all day, because this is the coolest place to sit, I get the sun. Either it's reflected off something, or maybe I get some direct, and I'm getting sunburnt in places, so I've got to be careful with that. So if the only drawback of working at home is sunburn, I think we're doing pretty well.
All right, nice. Well, you take care of yourself.
Okay.
So
yep.
That's it for our first episode of SRC Chats Quarantine Edition. And as long as we're required here in Trinidad to work from home, we'll be bringing you one of these episodes every week. So until next time, stay home, stay safe, and let's just continue to work together to get through this really tough situation.